Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.
Hello. This video will give you solutions for the MAG first question paper designed for candidates who participated in the June 2023 term and examination. So without any delay, let's proceed directly to question number 1. Your first question is, answer any two of the following with reference to the context. Was it a dream, or did I see it planned, a goodly table of pure ivory, all spread with junkets fit to entertain the greatest prince with pompous royalty? These are the opening lines taken from the Sonnet 72 written by Edmund Spenser. The sonnet is composed of 3 quatrains and a final couplet. The rhyme scheme of the sonnet is AB, BC, CD, EE, and is composed in iambic pentameter. The sonnet describes love as a feast with the help of rich images and metaphors. These lines describe a dreamlike scene featuring a splendid table adorned with pure ivory and laden with delicacies, suitable for hosting a grand and royal feast for the greatest prince. Look at its part B. All human things are subject to decay, and when fate summons, monarchs must obey. These are the opening lines from the poem Macphillickno, written by John Dryden. The poem is satire in which Dryden mocks Thomas Shelley and considers him an average poet. These lines mean that everything humans create or achieve doesn't last forever. It eventually breaks down or ends. The second line says that when destiny or fate calls, even kings and queens have to follow and accept whatever happens next. Next part is, morning and evening, maids heard the goblin's cry, come buy our orchard fruits, come buy, come buy. These are the opening lines taken from the poem Goblin Market, written by Christina Rossetti. The poem tells the story of 2 sisters, Laura and Lizzie, and their encounter with goblin merchants selling tempting and magical fruits. In these lines, the poet describes how the goblins call out to the maids both in the morning and evening, enticing them to buy their enchanted fruits. The goblin's cry serves as a persistent and tempting invitation, setting the stage for the allure and danger that the magical fruits hold for those who succumb to their seduction. Look at now its deport. That no country for old men, the young, in one another's arms, birds in the trees, those dying generations, and at their song, the salmon follows, the mackerel crowded seas. These are the opening lines taken from the poem Sailing to Byzantium, written by William Butler Yeats. The poem explores the themes of aging, art, and transcendence. The speaker expresses a desire to escape the physical decay of old age and achieve a form of immortality through artistic creation. In these lines, the speaker observes that the world is not suitable for old men. The young are happily together, like birds in trees. The generations are passing away, but there is still beauty in their song, like the waterfalls of salmon and the seas full of mackerel. The lines convey a sense of change and passing time in the world. Look at question number 2. Examine the main characteristics of metaphysical poetry, giving examples from the poems in your course. Metaphysical poetry is characterized by several distinctive features. The first is intellectual exploration. Metaphysical poetry is known for its intellectual engagement and exploration of complex ideas. Donne's poems often challenge the reader's intellect, prompting reflection on themes such as love, spirituality, and the nature of existence. Next is conceits. Conceits are extended metaphors which draw elaborate comparisons between 2 seemingly unrelated things. These conceits often challenge the reader's imagination and intellect. For example, in the poem The Flea by John Donne, flea is compared to marriage temple and marriage bed. In the poem The Pulley by George Herbert, pulley is used as a conceit for force that God uses to lift humanity back toward Him. Next is paradoxes. Metaphysical poets frequently employ paradoxes, presenting ideas that seem contradictory or illogical but provoke deeper thought. For instance, the speaker argues that killing the flea would be a triple murder, that is, the poet, the laddie, and the filly. Yet the act of killing the filly is presented as insignificant. This paradoxical language adds a layer of complexity to the argument. In Canonization by John Donne, the line, "Alas, alas, who is injured by my love," is a paradoxical. The speaker questions who is harmed by his love, emphasizing the paradox that love, which is generally viewed positively, is causing distress or controversy. Next is argumentative. Metaphysical poets use logical argumentation and dialectical reasoning to explore complex themes, often blending the spiritual and the sensual, the physical and the metaphysical. John Donne's poem, The Flea, is characterized by a persuasive and intricate argumentation presented by the speaker to convince his lover to engage in a physical relationship. Look at question number 3. Analyze the different thematic strands in Lycidas. Lycidas is a pastoral elegy written by John Milton in response to the death of his friend Edward King. Here are some key thematic strands in Lycidas. First is mourning and loss. Milton expresses grief over the untimely death of his friend and reflects on the fragility of life. Then we have nature and the seasons. The poem incorporates elements of pastoral literature, invoking nature and the changing seasons. This is evident in the shepherds and nymphs mourning Lycidas by the shore. Next is religious imagery and allusions. Milton infused the poem with Christian imagery and allusions. The drowning of Lycidas is likened to the biblical figure of Saint Peter, and there are references to classical and Christian mythology. Next is personal reflection and self-critique. The poem becomes a platform for Milton's personal reflection on his own role as a poet and his sense of responsibility. He contemplates the value of his poetic pursuits in the face of worldly and spiritual challenges. Next we have consolation and hope. Despite the sorrow expressed, Lycidas concludes with a note of consolation and hope. The poem suggests that Lycidas has found peace in the afterlife, and there is a broader optimism about divine justice. Let us now look at question 4. Would you consider Alexander Pope's An Epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot to be a satire? Discuss. So the answer is yes. Alexander Pope's An Epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot is widely considered a satirical work. In this poem, Pope employs satire to address various contemporary literary and personal issues. Here are some key aspects that support the classification of the poem as satire. First is satirical targets. Pope takes aim at numerous individuals and literary figures of his time. He criticizes enemies and satirizes the literary culture, making it a biting commentary on the social and intellectual circles in which he was involved. Next is mock heroic elements. The poem incorporates mock heroic elements, a common feature of satirical works. Pope elevates mundane or trivial subjects to epic proportions, emphasizing the absurdity of certain situations and personalities. Then we have personal grievances. Pope used the poem to express personal grievances and settle scores with his literary rivals. The verses are often laced with sarcasm and irony, reflecting the bitterness of his conflicts. Then we have self-satire. Pope doesn't spare himself from satire. He engages in self-mockery, reflecting on his own physical ailments and acknowledging the imperfections and vanities of human nature, which adds a layer of self-awareness to the satire. Let us now look at question number 5. Comment on the uniqueness of Byron and Shelley as poets. Lord Byron and Percy Bysshe Shelley, both prominent romantic poets, exhibit distinctiveness in their poetic styles, themes, and contributions to literature. Let us have a brief commentary on the uniqueness of each poet. Let us talk about Lord Byron. Byron is known for his strong individualism and rebellious spirit. His poetry often reflects a sense of defense against the societal norms and disdain for authority. Byron popularized the concept of the Byronic hero, a charismatic, brooding, and often morally ambiguous figure. Byron excelled in narrative poetry. His epic works such as Don Juan, showcase his skill in storytelling and his ability to blend humor, satire, and serious themes. Let us talk about Percy Shelley. Shelley is celebrated for his idealistic and visionary poetry. His works often explore themes of transcendence, the power of the imagination, and the pursuit of an ideal utopian world. Shelley was politically engaged, advocating for social justice and expressing radical views. Poems like The Mask of Anarchy reflect his commitment to political activism and critique of oppressive system. Let us now look at question 6. Discuss the pre-Raphaelite treatment of women based on your reading of My Sister Sleep and The Blessed Damozel. In My Sister Sleep, Rusty explores themes of love, death, and memory. The sister in the poem is portrayed as pure, who has passed away, and the speaker reflects on her beauty and innocence. The treatment of the sister in My Sister Sleep aligns with pre-Raphaelite ideals of idealized femininity. The woman is almost angelic, emphasizing spiritual qualities over earthly concerns. The Blessed Damozel is a more complex work that combines poetry and visual art. The Damozel is a central figure in heaven, yearning for her lover on earth. The Blessed Damozel is depicted with idealized beauty and heavenly attributes. Both poems share the pre-Raphaelite tendency, portraying them as almost otherworldly beings. The focus is on the spiritual and emotional aspects rather than a realistic representation. Let us now look at question 7. Write a critique of any one of the following poets. You have been given Andrew Marvell, T.S. Eliot, Oscar Wilde, and Dylan Thomas. So, we will only talk about one poet, that is Andrew Marvell. Andrew Marvell, a 17th century metaphysical poet, is widely celebrated for his intellectual prowess, wit, and innovative use of metaphysical concepts. However, like any poet, his works is subject to critique. First, complexity. Marvell's poetry is known for its complexity, which might be challenging for some readers. His dense metaphysical concepts and intellectual depth can make his work less accessible, potentially excluding a broader readership. Then, obscurity and ambiguity. Some of Marvell's poems, such as To His Coy Mistress, are praised for their ambiguity and open interpretation. However, this ambiguity can also be a point of criticism, as it might leave readers searching for clear meaning and intent. Themes of manipulation. In To His Coy Mistress, Marvell employs persuasive tactics to convince the woman to yield to his advances. Critics argue that the poem raises ethical questions about the speaker's attempts to manipulate the woman, potentially portraying a problematic perspective on consent. Next is limited range of themes. While Marvell's exploration of themes like love, time, and mortality is profound, some critics argue that his body of works exhibits a somewhat limited range of themes compared to other poets of his time. Let us now look at question number 8. Attempt a critical appreciation of any one of the following poems. You have been given 4 poems and we will only talk about one, that is The Wasteland. The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot is a very important modern poem. It talks about how people felt let down and broken after World War I. The poem is not easy, it has many layers and needs careful study. The poem's structure is not like traditional poetry. It has many voices and different points of view. Eliot used different language and styles to show the chaos of the modern world. The result is a complex work that reflects the noisy confusion of life today.